Hello everyone, welcome. So apparently Wilds had a few unannounced monsters get leaked, because apparently some people in the community have data mined here and there, and they managed to pull up a bunch of ID numbers. And these ID numbers are used throughout the series, and since they don't change, people are able to tell which monsters these numbers represent, and the numbers they have pulled up are for Gypceros, Nerscylla, Gravios, and Gore Magala. And I'm not going to go into the whole thing if these are really trustworthy weeks or if we can rely on them at all, because weeks are often as wrong as they are right, and even if they are right in a moment, it can be very easily changed due to change of plans, and so what may be right at one moment may become very wrong the next. So I'm not going to go into the whole thing of if these weeks are actually reliable or not, but this is more a video about if they were added to Wilds, a game that likely focuses heavily on ecology, what ecology they can bring to the table and just have a lot of fun with it. Now of course, pardon my voice, I'm currently a little bit sick right now, so I'll try and reduce the audio issues editing, but probably quite a few that are going to slip through the cracks. But despite that, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and let's just get right into it. Starting off with Gypceros, there's actually quite a few different ways where his ecology can be implemented in various ways. First off, his rubbery hide that is actually resistant to electricity can be very interesting, since he can actually be wandering around in areas that he probably shouldn't be wandering around in. Since there's a thunderstorm outside, he wouldn't care too much because he's mostly resistant to electricity, and you just walk through a thunderstorm or that giant sandstorm with lightning in it in the trailers, and he's just there chilling. So while you're finding Gypceros, lightning goes around all over, and while he may not care too much, you will. So it would be kind of interesting if they went for that kind of route where his rubbery hide actually is incredibly lightning resistant to the point where even a direct lightning strike will hurt him, but it won't really be an issue. More like a stagger at best. And of course, it's kind of funny if Ray Dow just blasts him with a railgun, lightning strike, and just Gypceros just doesn't care, but probably not. That's probably not going to happen, but it's a funny thought. It's a very funny thought. As for his poison, it's, you can have him wandering around different areas, and maybe in some cases poison could affect the vegetation a little bit, but mostly it's probably one of the least dynamic parts of his whole design in terms of ecology, because he's poisonous and that's basically it. Like, he could have marking areas with poison possibly, and could affect some stuff in the wildlife, but besides that, there isn't really too much relatively. Like, unless they really want to go in depth, and like if he poisons an area, like the vegetation just dies rapidly, which will be a cool effect, but I really don't think they're going to go that far, given how demanding the processing power required for that whole thing may be. So poison probably isn't going to be too much of a major detail. However, his little flashbang on top of his head is kind of an interesting idea, because it's basically just a flashbang that he can use whenever he wants. And it'd be kind of interesting if possibly he'll just wander around randomly, and if he encounters another monster, his first thought is just to flashbang it and try and run away, which can be interesting, since Tetsuyaku from World basically did that, and maybe Gypceros will be the version of that in Wilds possibly, if he is actually getting added to Wilds. Since, it's kind of funny to have a, you see a Gypceros wander into an area while you're fighting like Ray Dow, he comes out left field, flashbangs, and then leaves. It's definitely an idea, and be hilarious, but it just kind of depends on how he wants to use it, because he kind of has, smack the rock on his head a few times to get it off, but it would be kind of funny if he actually did try and basically flashbang everyone and just leave. Though of course he's probably gonna get butchered in a single major turf war in the game, because he's pretty down there in terms of overall strength. Like, he's basically just a bag of tricks, the rubbery hide, flashbang, poison, his tail, which is weird. Besides that, he doesn't really have any strengths really, so like any single monster like anywhere above him will just butcher him. Like, I wouldn't be surprised like even stuff slightly above him will just like wallop him. Another thing that's actually rather interesting is his habit to feign death. Now, this basically means that he is decently smart enough, or it's instinctually like baked into his mind to try and, when either trying to avoid death or maybe sneak up on something, to pretend that you're dead. And this can have a lot of interesting implications, since unlike the physical ones, they can really push the boundaries a little bit, because At worst, it just means that it's really clever in terms of like a bestial sense, where it's like it just naturally does stuff that's a little bit freaky. And if they really want to push it, it could be that this thing's actually decently smart and has like enough an idea where it can actually consider the fact that pretending to be dead is a good thing. And there's a lot of possibilities, you know, like maybe it's actually smart enough to do some basic tactics, as in it won't just charge straight at you, maybe it'll try and do something else. There's definitely quite a few different ways they can pull this, and it just kind of depends on how they want to push it, because, you know, feign death is obviously, you know, a thing that it does. But if they want to expand on it in Wilds, it kind of depends on how smart they want to make it, because again, it's like, they make it bestial smart, where it's like, it has this thing, it's baked into its mind, and that's it. Or they can actually make it clever, where it's actually, you know, it actually sees something and tries to respond accordingly based on what it thinks. So it's definitely a lot of possibilities for that, but the kind of problem is it just, I can't determine how smart they're going to make this thing, you know, in Wilds, because, you know, it's a decently old monster, hasn't been around for a bit, so it's up in the air how smart they want to make it. Moving over to Nerscylla, there's actually quite a lot of ecology stuff they can pull with her, especially given how much quality control they're putting onto spider monsters recently, with Rakikadaki and Rise being pretty good, and Alabrina is also looking pretty good, so given how high their quality standards are apparently for spiders, there's quite a lot of stuff they can pull with Nerscylla. You know, not only have the webs and like the whole idea of walking into a giant spider's lair, which is horrifying. You have like monsters hanging from the ceilings and like discarded husks in the corners. And there could be a lot of flavor where you can see different monsters at different times or different areas if there's more than one nest in different areas. And there's a lot of potential there to have like monsters get stuck there possibly too. And have a turf war where like, say Gypceros, which is important later, walks into like a Nerscylla lair and just Nerscylla just jumps on top of it and just starts like butchering the poor thing. And when I mean butcher, because it skins it. Like, Nerscylla skins monsters. And particularly Kezu and Gypceros are the main victims. And quite literally, Nerscylla skins them and then wears their skin as a hoodie, in which he makes its own clothes, which is horrifying. So, of course, these are both very thunder resistant creatures, so that's definitely something you work with, where Nerscylla is a lot weaker against lightning, but with its little hoodie, maybe you'll feel a lot more confident in going out and facing something that is lightning based. And possibly you can have like Western Nerscylla or more desperate ones have like Conga lava skins or like other creatures that, since it just can't get a hold of a Gypceros, is just going to take whatever it can get. And you can maybe make that like a special little thing or a different type of Nerscylla where it's a lot more desperate, so it's just going to pull some really stupid stuff to try and survive, possibly, where it's like has this dirty, disgusting Conga lava skin, and it's like, well, we gotta do something, so it just goes for you and just is a lot more aggressive, possibly. So basically making a hermit Nerscylla that is like super like desperate could be really interesting, because, you know, shrouded Nerscylla exists, and that's basically just a Nerscylla that focuses more on Kezu than the normal Nerscylla, which is Gypceros. Overall, again, there's just a lot of stuff they can really pull with that, because again, you can have turf wars based on monsters going into its lair, and it just jumps on top of them, and it'd be kind of funny if like an elder dragon or some larger monster got in, and it, you know, Nerscylla tried to jump them, but immediately just gets pummeled into the ground, possibly. It is somewhat smart, because apparently when it actually puts you to sleep, it'll actually check to see if you're actually asleep before it attacks you, so it is intelligent, so maybe not, but there's definitely a lot of potential with this, especially given if, you know, weather is going to be a major thing, so like, if it has a little hoodie on, it'll probably go out into a lightning storm a little more confidently, where if you manage to break the hoodie during a storm, it freaks out and just runs away, because like, oh shoot, I have no hoodie, and there's lightning, run. And just kind of go dashing off into a corner and hide, basically. Or try and get a new hoodie, basically from its closet, which is, you know, grim, but still. You know, there's corpses on the ceiling, so you probably know where it's, you know, where its wardrobe is. And of course, the giant spikes on the back could be really interesting to have, like, a turf war where a monster tries to get on top of it, but it just gets basically not impaled, but, like, pricked by the spikes, and it gets poisoned or paralysis or anything really, so there's a lot of options there. But overall, I think I like Gypceros. It's just a giant spider with the hoodie, so there isn't as much dynamic stuff overall to talk about. Because, Gypceros had the flashbang, it had the rubbery hide itself, it had the poison. But Nerscylla is just a giant spider with a hoodie, so. And that's honestly fine, because I think it's a great design, and I love it quite a bit. I can't wait, if it ever gets added to Wilds, see it in HD and watch its fashion show in HD as well, which, gonna be grim, but it'll be really interesting. Moving over to the almighty Cinderblock himself, we have Gravios. So, most of his ecology will probably relate to his offspring, Gypceros, which is the immature version of Gravios, and hopefully in Wilds, if they're both being added in the same game, which is not guaranteed because Rise only added Gypceros but not Gravios, so Wilds could have Gravios but not Gypceros, so it's a big if they're going to be added in the same game. But if they are, what ecology will be related around that. And hopefully, as a side tangent, if Gypceros is actually getting added to Wilds, that they actually implement him actually hiding underneath the ground, because it's kind of weird how in Rise they never do that whatsoever. But Gypceros never does that in Rise, and that's kind of weird, because that's his whole gimmick. Sit underground and just pretend to be a rock and avoid getting killed, so that's the whole gimmick, so it's kind of weird to see him never do it. But moving back onto Gravios though, there's a lot of stuff they can really do with him. It's a giant ore-eating wyvern, so it's not really that uncommon. Uragon exists and all that. But there's a lot of stuff you can do. Like, it's basically just a giant cinder block, where it's basically just the alpha of the volcanic areas. And it's just a massive cinder block. It's covered in so much armor. It is the armor. Like, it's just all armor. So the idea of just monsters just trying to scrape away at the armor and just failing miserably in turf wars could be really interesting. Whereas like the Gravios just barely, it recognizes they're there but just doesn't care and just bop, and crush. And the giant laser beam is also just insane. You can have a lot of interesting turf wars where it basically just spews lava and just annihilates fools, basically. Also just having this wander around the volcanic areas or rocky areas and just eat ore and just mostly just stay by itself and do nothing else could be really neat. Just watching it just wander around, just eat rocks and just meander over to another place, eat rocks, meander, rocks, and so on could be definitely a major part of its overall behavior, because it really has nothing to fear. It's again a brick wall, so who's gonna really fight it? 99% of most monsters probably won't even be able to scratch it whatsoever. Besides Elder Dragon stuff and other exceptions, but most normal monsters can't really do much of it. Having to just be this walking brick wall that just doesn't care and just quietly just go over, or not quietly because it's probably quite loud as stomps around, but just meanders over back and forth without fear, could really show off how just unmoving it's going to be in terms of the fact that you just can't deal with it. Unless of course if they actually add it in the fight, that actually heats up its body and weakens its own armor, which is, they did that in Rise for Gypceros, and I hope they don't do that for Gravios, because that seems a little bit weird, but I kind of understand why they did it, but I'm still very mixed about the whole thing, so it's a weird thing, but I won't get into it right now. But it kind of depends on how they want to go for the fight, really, but having this giant brick wall to chip away with could be really interesting. And the idea of it possibly going through lava to go through different areas could be really interesting, where you just see it walk into a lava lake and then it pops up somewhere else. Could be really interesting, just especially if you're relaxing or grabbing resources in a zone, and just you turn around to see this giant mass come out of the lava, just to oh yeah, that thing exists and wants to kill me probably. Sees you and then fires a laser and tries to incinerate you. Could be really interesting. So basically, laser beam jump scare could be very funny, where again, you're doing your own thing, then you hear something behind you, and before you turn around, laser beam. So there's a lot of potential, and again, it depends on how you want to go for it, especially if they're going to add, Gypceros and Gravios into the Wilds, or if you're going to do one or the other, or none at all. So they're very winged overall as monsters, so it kind of depends on how you want to go for it, but there's a lot of possibilities, and if they do, then it could be a really interesting situation where a fully grown Gravios somehow wanders into a Gypceros, and that interaction could be really interesting if they ever want to go that way, possibly. And finishing up with Gore Magala, we have quite a lot of ecology you can really go for, especially since he relates to two other monsters, Shigaru and Chaotic Gore Magala, and I'm basically going to assume if they are going to add Gore to Wilds at all, Chaotic and Shigaru are also going to get added as well, just because they're a core part of the whole ecology of the monster in general, and they're, basically the same skeleton and rig, so probably going to reuse it. So, get 2 other monsters in by just reusing the same skeleton. It makes sense. So, it's very likely if one's going to get added, the other 2 are. So, I'm basically going to assume again that they're all going to be added to the game if, one of them is. And overall, the ecology about the Frenzy virus could be interesting, but I severely doubt they're going to actually bring back the Frenzy monster system, because they tend to want to make their own system each game, and most likely there's another thing in game that causes the meta progression system, the Frenzy monster, the afflicted monsters, and probably going to be something different in this game, so, arch-tempered and all that in the world as well, so. Well, I'm pretty sure the Frenzy virus will matter a bit, and there probably will be a mention of it. I don't think they'll actually push it too much in the story. But they'll maybe mention it once or twice, but probably not too much. So that's probably going to take a back seat, unfortunately, but, probably someone else is going to take the spotlight over the Frenzy virus, so. And, there's going to be different meta progression and all that stuff. So, but it could be very interesting to have all 3 variants and, how they wait. Because, Gore is mostly, he's a sub-adult form. He's not fully grown. So you can have him, and then you can have his very much stronger adult variant, Shigaru, who is actually probably terrifying. Like, Gore is, but Shigaru is terrifying as well, and even more so in a lot of ways. And having this, giant, golden angel almost just fly over an area and just bombard every single pathogen could be interesting sight. And, all turf wars, you can possibly have that. And then you go over to the other corner, and then you have this little freak of nature that is chaotic, Gore Magala. And, while Gore isn't always the, most timid of creatures, chaotic is just freaking out in a corner, just throwing hands with quite literally everything and just trying to fight everything. And it can be very interesting to have ecology where regular Gore is he exists, he goes through areas. Then you have chaotic, he's just constantly twitching, he's just freaking out, he's constantly moving around. And if any monster just comes into the area, he just immediately tries to fight it. So, and that could be really terrifying because you would, you walk into an area and it's you look over and just see this chaotic freak of nature just rush straight at you because it senses blood and, it wants to fight everything. Because, it's in constant pain and all that, so it's freaking out constantly 24/7. Contrasts well with the less constantly upset, regular Gore and Shigaru. But overall, I just think that, Chaotic itself is a very fun monster. I really like their implementation of Rise, along with Gore and Shigaru, so I'm really happy to hear there's a chance they may pop up in Wilds, because I really think they didn't, really. Or they won't add them, because they're added so recently, and they may want make more elders to put the spotlight on instead of Gore, but have development time and all that stuff. But there was a chance they were going to pop up in Wilds. I'm definitely very excited. But the problem is they're so heavily intertwined with the Frenzy virus system that and all the stuff around that if you don't have that really as a main core concept, then it's they kind of fall flat a bit in terms of their overall impact of ecology, because their main idea is a rabies virus that spreads massively, and if you don't have that fully implemented, then their ecology is a little bit weak in terms of overall impact. So unless they are going to pull the Frenzy virus, or it's going to be mentioned in a decent part of the story, then maybe, perhaps. But if they're not going to make a Frenzy virus thing the main focus, then they're going to be fun fights. They're going to have interesting ecology in terms of how each form reacts and they all work, but without that giant overarching Frenzy virus system, they're just gonna be another monster. It's gonna be it's basically how Malzeno's gonna act if he's ever added to a different game, where it's oh yeah, Curio exists, but it's only for him, and besides that, it's basically not mentioned. So again, basically the same with Gore, because again, they're both monsters that are heavily intertwined with basically rabies virus, and both had massive impacts in their games where you were introduced in, but take them out of that, and it's there isn't that overarching story of, the Curio, the Frenzy virus, so there just isn't that much meat or impact behind it. They're still very fun fights, and I'm definitely looking forward to, if Gore is added in his form, other forms, Shigaru and Chaotic, I'm very much looking forward to it, and I really hope, if they ever do actually add Chaotic as well, that they make him a little freaky little gremlin that is, constantly fidgeting, and, it just looks completely nuts, and having that as ecology that actually matters could be really cool, because again, you have Shigaru and Gore, which are quote unquote calm, and then you have Chaotic, which is just freaking out and just running back and forth and is picking fights with everything. And that's pretty much it. So again, I'm not really sure how these weeks are going to be out with really, or if they're going to mean anything, but despite that, I'm definitely looking forward to more monsters getting added to Wilds, obviously. And I really hope some of these monsters that haven't really had a chance to shine in a modern game do get brought into a modern game, and they have proper ecology and everything, and are brought to their fullest potential. So again, I'm not sure if these weeks are even true, but this is kind of a fun little ecology, like lighthearted thing just to go over a little bit and have a little fun with it. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video. I appreciate everyone stopping by. There's Twitch and Discord below, so if you're gonna go there, you can. And again, apologies for my voice and my mask right now because I'm just sick still, but hopefully I should get better relatively soon, and hopefully I'll be able to make more videos. This has been been holding me off a little bit, so for making more videos. So we got the network stuff fixed, and then this happens. So yeah, but either way, I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and again, appreciate everyone stopping by, and see you guys next time, whenever that may be. So good night, everyone. Ciao.